For your safety, please ensure you read the full disclaimer in the description of this video before you start your virtual training. Before we get into the details of the actual workout and the exercises that we're going to be performing, I just want to review what you're going to want to use for resistance today. So we are going to be doing a series of movements where we're going to be holding resistance in one hand. I'm going to be using a kettlebell for this. Okay, this is a 30-pound kettlebell. You can adjust your resistance based upon the details within the description of this workout. So consider your overall starting point. Consider what your goals are in terms of work to rest ratio, and this will help you determine how much resistance you might be using or should be using overall. Now keep in mind, if you do have a series of items that are of different resistance, you can modify throughout your session. So I'm going to be using something I can hold in one hand, which is going to be the kettlebell. If you have a dumbbell, a laundry bottle, or any other type of resistance that you can use from home. We're going to take a moment to go through the exercises that we're going to perform today. And these will be in the sequence that we're going to perform these supersets. So the first movement that we're going to perform today is a squat. So legs are going to be hip width, shoulder width apart, so planted within your feet. We're going to focus on sitting back, and then we're going to come up to an upper position. I like to control my negative, explode a little bit more through the positive. You want to make sure that you keep a nice neutral spine. If you're slightly arched, that's fine. And if you want to adjust the depth, then that works as well. We want to keep the chest out. We want to keep the shoulders back. We want to be sitting back and driving up off of the heels. Main muscle groups we're focusing on is going to be the upper leg into the glute. So that's going to include the hams, the glutes, the quads. The second movement that we're going to be supersetting with is going to be a single leg deadlift. And we're going to use a piece of resistance in order to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to stand and I'm going to anchor myself. And from this position here, I'm going to focus on lowering the resistance as I bring my leg back. I'm going to try to stabilize myself as I come back into this upper position. So we'll be doing this for the time frame that's given, and I'm going to alternate from side to side, and I'd recommend that you do the same just so that we cover off each side of the body evenly. So the next movement that we're going to get into is going to be a press, a chest press, and we're going to do this in a push-up format. So we're going to come into an upper plank position. We're going to retract the shoulder blades, so bringing the shoulder blades together. We're going to drive up through the chest. And I'm going to go through a few different variations. Now, when we actually do this workout, we are going to do it for up to 50 seconds. So I'll want you to modify, 50 seconds is a long time to be doing a push-up. So we can start off in the most difficult means of the movement, which is going to be the traditional push-up, and then we can drop into some alternatives. So from the knees, and we can also focus on a negative. So for this movement, we're going to want to get into that upper position. We're going to lower down. We're going to raise up. So it's just going to be moving through that motion. We come down into the high knee position, and this will allow us to continue through the movement. And we can also focus on the negative, which is a lower. We can help ourselves back up. So basically, we're controlling ourselves down into that position. Now this exercise is going to be supersetted with a bird dog. So what we're going to start doing is starting off on all fours. We're extending out. And we can hold this position. We can move up and down. Or we can focus on coming all the way in. And the same thing is going to apply here, where we're going to want to alternate sides. So the next exercise we're going to focus on is going to be a kettlebell swing. And we can do a single or a double hand, but feet are hip with shoulders width apart. We're going to bring that kettlebell between our leg, and we can also focus on doing a single arm. We just want to make sure that we're doing both sides evenly. So we're going to be moving into a walkout after we've performed this exercise. So whether it's from the knees or it's from the upper position, we're just basically going to focus on moving in and out, and it doesn't have to be as dramatic as what I've done, but we're just going to focus on essentially keeping the core nice and stabilized into that high plank position. So following this series, so that's going to be 3 different supersets back to back. We're going to take 1 minute rest, then we're going to move into our next movement. So if we really want to make this functional core, we're going to focus on using the dumbbell. We're going to do it single-handed. So we're going to do a lunge. So I'm going to focus on holding this up overhead. And with my opposite side of the body, I'm going to lunge down and I'm going to come back. So the whole time I'm keeping my chest out, I'm staying nice and tall, and I'm moving up and down within the movement. And I'm going to focus on supersetting this with a glute bridge. So for the glute bridge, I'm just going to come down to the floor. I'm going to focus on exploding to the top position, controlling down, and I'm tightening everything into the top position. If I want to make it more difficult, I can bring my one leg out, and I'm moving through the motion. Making sure once again that I train each side evenly. So the next movement is going to be the bent over row. And this is where I'm going to bring the resistance into it. So with this movement here, I'm going to focus on that arched back. I'm going to focus on the chest out. And I'm just going to be raising or pulling on the resistance into the side of the body. And I'm focusing on my control, and I'm focusing on my contraction, squeezing the back as I come into that position. Now, in that position, bent over, I'm still engaging my core. I'm really focused on what I'm doing. And if I really want to make it a stability variable, I'll focus on one at a time. So in using resistance with one arm, my core is going to have to stabilize a lot more. So you can do single and alternate as well. The last exercise that we're going to focus on is going to be a single arm shoulder press. And I'm going to alternate sides. So it's going to basically be from this position here, so that standing position. I can keep my back a little bit straighter if I focus on staggering or scissoring my feet. So I'm going to control down and explode up. In this movement here, my opposite oblique is going to be extremely contracted. So when I superset, it's going to go into a side lunge, and I'm going to want to target the side that was contracting, so opposite of the side that was holding, and I'm going to come down into a side plank position. So whether it's from an upper position, whether it's from a lower position, and we're going to alternate sides. Feet apart is going to make it a little bit easier. If your feet are together, you're going to have to focus a little bit more on stability. So those are the exercises. That's the sequence and series. We would take 2 minutes rest, and we're going to repeat this overall sequence twice. So in terms of work and recovery, we are going to focus on our transitions being on each minute. So each superset will be 2 minutes in length. And as it relates to your work to rest, this is completely up to you. I'm going to work for 50 seconds with 10 seconds rest, so I'm going to choose to work at the hardest point. But if you want to modify it, if you're a beginner, you want to make it a little bit easier for yourself, or maybe you're just feeling it out, you can focus on 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of rest. If you are a little bit more intermediate, maybe you'll focus on 40 seconds work, 20 seconds rest. And if you're working along with me, we're going to go 50, 10, 50, 10, and we're going to move through that series of 3 followed by 1 minute, followed by the next series of 3, followed by 2 minutes. Before we get started, let's just focus on loosening up and getting the heart rate going. So let's just start off with some shoulder rolls initially. So we're just going to want to move around a little bit here. We want to loosen up all the muscle groups that we're going to be training today. Let's switch directions. So as I'm focusing on these shoulder rolls, I'm just moving around a little bit. And in a moment, I'm going to get the lower body involved. So we're just going to focus on alternating now. Let's just focus on bringing the heels back. So we're just going to be loosening it up at the joints, getting the blood flowing. And as we go through this movement, let's just focus on bringing the arms in across our chest. So the arms are nice and wide in this extended position, and kind of try to work through the coordination element of it. So let's just focus on relaxing the upper body here, and let's just focus on bringing the knees up. So a similar type of concept where we're just going to focus on loosening up, getting the blood flowing, getting ready for the actual section today. Let's just focus on bringing it into a light jog. So we're just going to focus on bringing the heart rate up a little bit. If you want to move side to side, that works as well. Let's focus on moving into a few jumping jacks, or you could focus on alternating without any impact. So it's just completely based upon where you're at overall, but we just want to focus on loosening up and getting the blood flowing. So just walk it out. Let's just focus on some skiers, so moving from side to side, bringing the arms up in front. Let's just focus on walking it out. So from this position here, let's just go through some of the exercises that we're going to be doing today. So let's just focus on a squat. So we'll focus on a few reps here. From here, let's just focus on the push-up. So we're just going to come down into position. So focusing on roughly 5 here. Let's focus on holding the position for a moment. Let's focus on moving over into a side plank. So we're just going to hold the position, keeping the core nice and engaged. So from here, you can just switch sides. Focus on holding that position. Let's focus on coming back. Let's rest down. Focus on doing a few bird dogs here from this position. Focusing on one side. And then we'll alternate to the other. So from here, let's stand it up. Let's focus on doing a couple rows. So feet are hip width, shoulder width apart. Try to focus on keeping the body stabilized, chest is out. Let's switch sides. So using that single arm again, it's going to focus on keeping everything stabilized. So we're going to have to work through the core in order to keep this position. So now let's move into the kettlebell swing, either 1 or 2 arms at a time. Switching sides. And we're going to finish it off with just a few shoulder press. So let's come up one side at a time. Switching sides, changing your foot stance. So what you'll find in all these single arm movements is that you're really going to have to engage the core. You're going to get that benefit overall through engaging, but then obviously we're targeting the total body as well. So we're going to get that total body workout as well as get that core workout that we're looking for today. So grab a drink. We're going to get started momentarily. All right, we're going to get started in 5 seconds. So we're starting with the squat, with or without resistance. So through the first round, I'm definitely not going to use resistance. As I mentioned in the beginning, hip width, shoulder width apart is your foot positioning. We're sitting back, we're keeping our chest nice and tall. And we're just moving through the exercise. So if you're moving with me, you're going to find that there's very little rest. which is definitely going to drive up the heart rate. So you're modifying if you need to. You are perhaps resting at this point, and we're moving into the single-legged deadlift next. So we're going to have 10 seconds to move through that transition. So it's going to happen relatively quickly. So I'm going to start off with the right arm and the left leg. And I'm going to make sure I switch halfway through. So I want to keep a nice tabletop. I'm not worried about how many reps I get out here. I just want to keep everything controlled and everything stabilized. So I can feel it through my hamstring, so the back of the leg that's in towards the floor, and I'm going to switch, coming into that halfway point. My heart rate's already elevating. Just moving through this first superset. Should be about even here in terms of the amount of reps. Going to pause for a moment. Moving into our second set of exercises. So as I said in the beginning, 50 seconds is a long time. I'm going to adjust as I need to, and you should do the same. So focusing on that push-up. Nice controlled movements. Trying to stay stabilized through the core. Remember those alternates. So we can do this from the knee, and we can also slowly focus on the negative. So adjust as you need to. You can pause at the top, taking extra rest. So just remember those modifications. So the next exercise we're going to move into is going to be the bird dog. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get into this position. And I'm just going to focus on moving up and down. So I'm trying to stay nice and straight into the top position. But I'm stabilizing my core all the way through. And switch sides. So remember those options. We can pulse, we can hold at the top, we can come in underneath. I'm just going to move up and down. Focus on your breathing. Keep everything controlled. We're going to move into the next superset. So next superset is going to be the kettlebell swing. And rest as you need to. This exercise here is really going to drive the heart rate up. I'm going to make sure I switch sides, training both sides evenly. So using the hips here into the top part of the motion. And I'm going to take a little bit of an extra breather. So moving into our exercise. For the core, so that core specific movement, we're going to move into walkouts. Heart rate's definitely up, modify as we need to. So we're holding a plank type position, and we're just walking in and walking out. Try to catch your breath as you move through. Coming down to the knees as you start to fatigue. Focus on your breathing. Taking extra rest as you need it. Almost there. All right, so we're going to take 60 seconds rest. So that's our first series. That was the first set of 3 exercises. So we're halfway through the first round. We're going to be moving into the lunge with the glute bridge next. So use this opportunity to grab a drink, build in your recovery. Pay attention to how you're feeling. You can adjust as you need to. If that was too difficult, you can modify your resistance. You can focus on taking extra rest. So as I indicated in the beginning, just adjust your work to rest ratio. 30 by 30, 40 by 20, maybe a 50 by 10 as I'm doing. So we're going to be moving into that lunge. And we're going to alternate, so I'm going to get into position, opposite side. Keeping everything nice and controlled. Chest out. Trying to move up and down, let's switch sides. And I'm alternating legs. I'm going to be moving into the side plank next. All right, side plank. So I'm going to want to go to this side first. Same side we started with. I'm going to do this from an upper position. So I do have a slight bend in my elbow. I'm keeping my hip elevated, trying to keep my upper body straight. Heart rate certainly elevated. I'm about to switch sides. You'll do the same. Let's keep it up. Let's switch sides. So staying nice and tall, try not to sag. So keeping everything tight and engaged through the core. Slight bend in the supporting elbow. Feet are a little bit wider for stability. All right, 10 seconds moving into the bent row. I'm actually not going to use the band. I want to keep everything single-sided. Keeping everything controlled. So I'm sitting back, keeping the chest out. I'm going to switch sides, keep the timing even. Same position through the body, stabilizing through the core. Let's keep it up. All right, moving into our next movement, we're going to focus just on a regular plank. So we're just focusing on the hold here. So we want to try to stay nice and straight through the body. Try to not keep your glutes in the air. Try not to sag. So just stay nice and straight, engage the core. Focus on contracting the glutes, the quads. Keep everything stable and tight. You can do this from the lower rest position if you choose to, which will be from your elbows. So holding this position here, another 10 seconds to go. If you start to fatigue, drop down. All right, we're moving into our next exercise. So we're focused on the single arm. And I mixed up the order of the exercises mistakenly. So instead of doing the side plank, we're going to do the glute bridge. So switching sides. So controlling through the movement, keeping the core nice and engaged. And we're going to go into the glute bridge this time. I'll fix that into the next round. So we're coming into 2 minutes recovery. Let's finish it up here. So control down, you can be more explosive up. Head is resting in towards the floor. So are the shoulder blades. I'm going to move to a single leg. I'm going to adjust from one side to the other, keeping everything even and balanced. Notice how I'm keeping my upper leg in line as I come into that top position. Almost there. I'm going to move back to a double. Squeezing at the top, glutes nice and tight. So here we're actually going to take 2 minutes rest. So that was the first time through the whole circuit. We're going to do one more repeat, which will mean 2 in total. So I'm going to let this clock run out for a minute. It's a good opportunity to catch your breath, to grab a drink. When we get down towards the end of this minute, I'm going to stop the timer. I'm going to give us an extra minute. And then we're going to focus on repeating the sequence. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the workout. I know that for me, I'm definitely getting an aerobic workout. Just looking at my heart rate now, I'm definitely averaging a heart rate that would be equal to a continual aerobic training zone. For me, it's probably in about the 60% range. So it just shows you that with continual work, we can focus on not doing any cardio-specific movement, but still get the heart rate up into an aerobic zone. So we're going to let this extra minute run out. So halfway through, as I've explained, so when we get started again, we're going to be 15 minutes through the workout. So by the time we're done, we're going to be in and around 28 minutes. Or there in between, and then we're just going to move into the last part of the workout, which is going to be the cool down. So feel free to leave any comments on this session. If you do have any questions, you can certainly put them in the description, and I'll be watching. I'll definitely follow up on those. So let's go ahead and let's get ready to start into the next round. So we're right back into the top, which puts us as squats. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to start right away. So I'm a few reps behind. I'm going to go without resistance again. So we're focusing on hip width, shoulder width apart. We're driving up from the heels into this top part of the movement. Trying not to lock out at the knees. Let's try to keep some tension. So we're not necessarily coming all the way up. I'll give you guys a little bit of a side view. Maybe that first round was a little bit more fatiguing than you thought, so maybe you're going to take some extra rest this round. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe it's the case that it wasn't challenging enough, you took too much rest, so now you're going to work a little bit more. So we're going into the next movement, which is that single leg, stiff leg. So I'm just going to focus on coming down into that low position, back up to the top. Trying to stay sturdy and stable. As I really come down, I can feel that hamstring working. And I'm fighting through the core to maintain that balance as well. Let's switch to the opposite side. We want to keep everything that we're doing even. And even if you're working at a reduced range of motion, that's fine. But just make sure that we focus on keeping our back neutral, our arched, avoid rounding forward, and allowing that upper back to roll out. Getting ready for the push-up. So we can adjust and modify. I'll start off with the regular push-up as I bleed. You will. I'm going to do some series of 5s, pausing at the top. Then move down. All right, moving into our core specific movement, which is going to be that bird dog position. Trying to stay nice and stable across the top of the body. Focus on your breathing. Getting ready to switch sides. And switching. Getting everything nice and balanced. Controlling all our movements. So I'm more focused on quality reps, keeping a contraction, reducing overall risk of injury, core stabilizing the whole way through. Okay, moving into that third exercise, we're into the swing. And I'm going to start off with a double. So this one will really drive the heart rate up. I'm going to switch. I'm going to take a little bit of extra rest. You guys can keep going, but I can definitely feel my heart rate ramp there. I'm up at about an extra 20 beats to give you guys a reference. So I just want to make my heart rate come down a little bit, make this more sustainable overall. So we're moving into the walkouts. And we're coming up to that halfway point of the second round. So remember, the distance is up to you. Stay nice and tight through the core, stabilized. Feel free to come down. If you want to take a bit more rest, you can walk all the way back, but you're going to lose tension. So you want to keep tension. You can't come up to the point where you're going to lose that resistance. So as soon as you come inside of your shoulders, you're going to lose that resistance. So if you want to maintain that tension, stay outside of the shoulder zone. Great work, guys. Let's keep it up. All right, we're taking this minute rest. We've earned it. We got 3 more supersets before we wrap it up. So we're just coming into 21 minutes. Grab a drink, focus on this recovery. I like to move around rather than sitting. Just move on the spot, let that heart rate gradually come down. It's not going to come down all the way, but it'll start to come down marginally. So my heart rate's actually still sustained from that 20 beat up point, but we are getting towards the end of the class, and body's certainly being challenged, and we haven't had a whole lot of rest. So adjust as you need to. Remember those modifications. We're going to move into the lunge, and I'm going to make the modification this round. So instead of doing the side plank, we're going to do the glute bridge. My error the first time, so my apologies. A few more reps, and then we're going to switch sides. Keeping it nice and even. Let's switch. So I'm not so concerned with my knee position because I know that my front heel is staying in contact with the floor. I am trying to stay upright through the upper body. And for me, I'm comfortable with the depth. So modifying at home based upon your ability. I'm going to start off with the single leg. So the most difficult of the options. Keeping my thighs in the same position into that upper portion of the movement. Keeping my glutes tight, staying stabilized through the core. Keeping my head neutral, rested onto the ground. Upper back is rested at all times. Starting to become fatigued, I'm going to move into the double leg, making it easier overall. A little bit more explosive on the way up, contracting through the glutes, keeping the core stabilized. All right, moving into the row. So we have that one arm row movement. So try to stay nice and stable, arching the back, sitting back into the movement. I'm getting a little bit of a stretch, but I'm not overly tilting. So keep that core tight and balance through the movement. I can feel the core really engaged, based upon that single arm movement and having to balance all of that stability. Controlling my movement, focusing on the contraction, trying to avoid a lot of momentum, still keeping that neutral back, slightly arched. Okay, moving into our next movement for the core, which is going to be that plank position. So feel free to modify. Slight bend in the elbows, straight through the core. Focus on your breathing, keeping everything nice and tight, dropping to the knees, the elbows. Keep that core engaged. So we're only going to have 2 more exercises. Let's hang in there. Let's make these last 20 seconds count. We're almost there. Okay, shoulder press. And then we're going to move that shoulder press into that side plank. controlled. I'm going to have to rotate before the 25 seconds. I can feel myself fatiguing, so I'm going to need to do less reps on each side. Still keeping everything balanced. Just giving a little bit more rest. If I had extra or different resistance, I could be changing it at this point. Just want to get a few more out on this side to keep it balanced. And then let's go into the side plank for the opposite arm that we started with. So we're just alternating, we're splitting sides here. Staying high, staying tight. I like to keep that wider position. Moving to the other side in a moment. Let's relax, let's switch. You can just flip if you want. I want to stay facing the camera. And this is our last movement. So stay tight. Keep that core stabilized. Try to avoid sagging. So stay up, stay tight. We're almost there. All right, good stuff. So we made it through the session. Take a moment. I want you guys to go ahead and grab a drink. And once you've grabbed a drink, we've given it a moment here, we're going to move into some stretching. So I'll give you a little bit longer. So just coming up on 28 minutes, just as I mentioned in terms of the overall work time. To give you guys an idea of kind of where I was, I'm pretty certain that my overall heart rate, I'll tell you in a moment, it averaged 155 beats per minute, which is, as I said before, a fully aerobic workout. So I'm not sure where that falls precisely for myself, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's up towards 70% of my overall capacity or my training zone for my active heart rate. But let's just move into stretching now. So let's just focus on bringing one arm across the body. So we're just going to keep moving here. We're going to let the heart rate come back down gradually. So the arms just across the chest. So we're grabbing just above the elbow. We're going to switch sides. So we're starting off with the shoulder. And I'm going to progress into other stretches through the upper body. We're going to focus on static stretching here. Now let's just focus on bringing the arms out front. What we want to do is try to spread out the upper back. So just spread out the shoulder blades. So just remembering that this workout can be modified, as I mentioned many times throughout. So you can change that by changing your resistance. Let's just focus on bringing the arms behind. So you can change the resistance. You can focus on taking additional rest time. You could take extra rests between sets, which would just require pausing. Or instead of doing 2 full rounds, you could just focus on 1 round. And in the same way, you can make it more difficult. Let's bring an arm behind, chin up off your chest. And we'd make it more difficult by either adding resistance. If we did 1 round, moving to 2, we could focus on increasing the work time and decreasing the rest time. Let's focus on switching arms. But as I also mentioned throughout, I'm always going to recommend that you guys focus on moving through each of the movements with full control. So as you could see by some of my cues and my indications, you don't need to move erratically or out of control in order to get the heart rate up. All we have to do is create enough overall stress on the body We can do that by just the tension. We can do that by reducing the work. And that's going to be enough to get the heart rate up. So let's double up on some of these stretches, but we're going to move into a stretch for the calf. Let's focus on reaching out. Let's spread that upper back again. So we're nice and tall through the upper body, chest is out, back is straight or neutral. Let's relax. Let's come to the other side. Push the heel down. And this time, let's come with the elbows, push towards the back, shoulders depressed, chest nice and tall. Let's get a nice stretch through that chest. And let's relax here. So from here, let's focus on bringing one leg forward. Let's stretch out that hamstring. So super important for that movement that we were performing before, which was the single leg Romanian deadlift, or the single leg stiff-legged, which really would have targeted that hamstring. So heel down, toe up, body nice and straight. Let's focus on switching sides. So heel down, toe up. Focusing on your breathing here. And any of these stretches can be repeated twice. Let's move into a stretch for the quad. And you can use the wall if you need to, but we want to try to keep our quads together. Slight bend in the extended leg. Use your arm if you need to for balance. We're bringing the heel in towards that glute. We're just getting a stretch through that bent leg, so that bent quad. Try to keep your knees somewhat together, so try not to have your leg out to the side. So breathing rate is certainly coming down. I can tell, I can feel it. That's a part of the stretching process. So from here, we're going to bring it down. We're going to come all the way in towards the ground. And let's start off with one leg extended. Let's hug the other leg in. We're going to get a stretch through the glute here. So this would be an important stretch for a number of the movements we did today. So we did the lunge, we did the squat, we did the swing. We used the glutes for a lot of the different movements today. So let's focus on switching legs. Let's hug that leg in. So from here, we're going to lay it down into the ground. Arms out to the side, upper back resting. Keep your legs together, bend them at about 90 degrees. Upper back is flat to the floor, head's facing up towards the ceiling, but resting on the floor. Push the knees down into the floor. You should feel a bit of a stretch between the hip and the rib cage. And let's just focus on holding this stretch here, that little bit of discomfort. Let's move to the other side. And let's just hold this position. So once again, that stretch between the hip and the rib cage. So from here, let's just come back up towards the center. You can focus on bringing one leg up towards your chest, or we can focus on bringing both. Just focus on taking a few deep breaths here. And you can relax. Just try not to bounce too much here, but we're just bringing the knees up towards the chest. Let's relax. And let's roll it back up. Let's focus on coming into that bird dog type position, but let's focus on arching the back, holding for a moment or two. Let's focus on rounding, bringing the chin in towards the chest. And let's move through this series a couple times. Breathing in as you arch and out as you round. All right, let's sit it back. So I do really appreciate you guys participating today. Hopefully you liked it. If you do, feel free to leave any feedback in the comments sections. Lastly, I do want to say, if you're watching this on the PSP Southwestern Ontario Facebook page, feel welcome to like us, follow our content. If you're maybe viewing this on the Toronto page, that's great as well. Like PSP Toronto and Southwestern Ontario. And I would like to refer everybody to go onto the YouTube page. Maybe you're watching this on the YouTube page, so it's going to be in reverse. But it's CF, Morale and Welfare Services YouTube page, and you can check out a ton of content like this through all the different playlists for the different structures of workouts, and then through all of the bases across Canada. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the workout. Thank you very much for participating. Jordan Guillen, PSB Fitness and Sports